Okay, guys, I want to just so yesterday it was light outside. Well, of course it was light outside, but I was going through my hair, like, and it was bright. Right now it's a little bit dark, but it's okay. But I want you to see that this is supposed to be like all this white, it's your actual natural hair color. And there's a lot, and it's happening like it's supposed to happen. It's happening faster, it's more accelerated. And I mean, I'm pretty amazed. I think it's great because if I have a tan face and white hair and a tan plump face with long white hair, hell fucking yeah, that's going to be an amazing looking contrast. Because we've always associated the confluence of the deterioration process, or the aging, A-G-I-N-G, or A and then G-E-N-E, deterioration process, as going gray, when really it's just the programming that is wearing off. Okay? And so, yeah, that's pretty amazing. Like, seriously amazing. I mean, when I finally figured that out the other day, because I'm like, I don't remember seeing this much gray or this much white before. And so with all this particle acceleration and the instability of the environment, the old programming is being purged out, and I'm actively purging out the old programming and going back to my original form, whatever that is. Is hair necessary? This is the thing. Is there a hair gene? Yeah, there's a whole thing, and I'll read that. But when people lose their hair over time, would I lose my hair over time? I'm just trying to think. Would I lose my hair over time? Is that my original form? Is even the long hair no, there's always some kind of hair on a human. It's the amount of hair and what color it is. That is the difference, is the programming. And so from what I've read, let me go back to what I read before. So give me a second. But anyways, but no, let me just go through this. So yesterday, so let's just go back to yesterday. So my husband, I've been feeling the particle acceleration, but it hasn't been crazy. A few heartbeats yesterday, and then this, my little scar, my little mark of the beast, that was sort of sore. And then my ankle was sore yesterday. Now, remember I told you I had a sprained ankle when I was a kid because I jumped over a bag of leaves in the garage and landed on my ankle, and I sprained it. And so then the doctor just put tape to hold it in place. And then that's when I found out I was allergic to adhesive. But then I re-injured it in 2010 playing soccer, when I couldn't walk at all for like a few days. It was really crazy. It was crazy. I was like, oh my God. And that's when I actually met my husband online around that same time. And so I took pictures of me going to the hospital and having them x-ray my ankle. So yesterday we were watching Black Mirror. Joan is awful. And I noticed that there was a little bit of a throbbing pain in my right ankle. And I'm like looking at my ankle going like, does this look swollen to you? To my husband, he's like, no, it doesn't. Are you like a hypochondriac right now? I'm like, no, I'm just like, I feel it. And then he's been going in and out of the bathroom like all day yesterday. Okay, pooping. And I mean, we have our regular food. I give him regular food. Nothing is completely different. So, so he's been pooping a lot lately, like a lot. And so, yeah, so that was going on yesterday, but I didn't feel anything more than just a few heart palpitations. I think the last few days taking naps on and off, and And yesterday I was also making the food. So I was putting my energy towards making that food, that Asian food, and the steak and all that. And so I wanted to have something a little exotic. Good morning, John. Good morning, Audrey. Good morning, everybody else that's coming through. All right. So yesterday, afternoon particle acceleration, heart beating faster, hubby releasing demons. He's pooping a lot. And my right ankle was sore. It almost felt like it was swollen. And that's where I sprained my ankle a couple of years ago, or when I was a kid, and then re-injured it in 2010. And so as I was just doing what I was doing yesterday, just going on in and out, taking care of stuff, uh, I obviously go through my news feed and I see, people talking about fighting for freedom. And it's not even just the patriots. It's not even just the patriots are fighting for freedom. It's also the religious folk. Like I guess you call them Hebrews. And a lot of them were attracted. A lot of the Hebrews, and they were the main platform in a lot of ways with the J world. For some reason, there's a lot of religious folk that get attracted to this information. But I think it's called the Hebrews, and they're always talking about Yah or Yahweh or something. And I don't know if they're affiliated with the Jehovah's. I don't know if there's any kind of connection. I haven't studied the two factions, if they're actually one, and then people just refer to their God differently. It's interesting. But I noticed something on their page. They're going like, a Bob Marley quote: "Better to fight for freedom than die in a prison your whole life." And I'm like, whoa, this is interesting, because that's what was, of course, the culture of slavery of the black folk. Yeah, they were in a prison, like literally they were in chains, and they were hurt by people, and slavery was all over the place. Hey, Tanya. And even there's white slavery, and even the Irish were looked down upon way back, in the early 70s, 80s, 60s, 50s, whatever. I mean, I'm watching also The Devil's Own with Brad Pitt and Harrison Ford, and they talk about the IRA and the Irish Republican Army against the British overseers, and how the Irish were looked down upon by the British. And so there's every single culture out there on some level has been under the thumb of somebody. Hey, Tanya. And so when we have been traumatized and told time and time again that this is our culture, we're fighting against this is who you are, this is where you came from, this is what you must stand for, this is your religion, this is your politics, this is your science, this is your ethnic background, take pride in your culture, take pride in your history. On some level, at what point does somebody realize that it's not back in 6,000 years ago, or even 50 years ago, or even, 500 or 200 years ago? I mean, we humans have been set free physically. I mean, at least in the first world. Third world, I can't really speak to, because there's different rules going on over there in the third world countries. But in the first world, you actually have been physically set free, but it is your mind, it's your culture, it's your family and friends, it's your politics, your religion, your science dogmas that have enslaved you, that have kept you in such basically an immovable place that you can't even evolve. That's the prison that people are fighting against, is the fact that they are in a culture, a belief system, a politics, religion, science dogma that has completely enslaved them, held them prisoner. Their friends and family reinforce that prison, because you try to evolve, you try to change, you try to break free and get out and fight against it. And it's also the diseases, the cancer, disease, and chronic illness. It's the body breaking free from that jail of those things that are trying to harm it. And then the people are slowly and accelerating the attacks against their potential freedom. That's what all the shamans do with the herbs and the extracts and all the different homeopathic, is that they reinforce the prison, because they don't set free the things that are enslaving them, and they don't allow the person to evolve or change or take on any new information. And then it becomes a war. Okay, it becomes a war, and of course a resistance. And that's what's going on in the health and wellness world. It's a resistance against the body evolving, and that is what contributes to the deterioration process. And so I'm thinking about, right in my head as I'm saying this, about January 6th, and how the government did not allow the police to resist the patriots. They allowed them to come in. They basically stepped aside and let the flow of patriots come in, and they watched them go through, hanging off the side of the building, busting through the door, the windows, trying to get in. And seriously, they allowed them in. Because if you resist, right, then it's destruction. There'd be more casualties if the government resisted January 6th than what the casualties were after they allowed them in. And then finally, somebody was killed and other things were going on. And then I forget exactly how everything ended, but eventually things, they were dispersed. But that's the thing, is that the government did allow people to come in. They didn't resist. And so there was a lot less casualties when the government wasn't resisting the patriots. But right now we have so many casualties in the health and wellness world because of the resistance to evolution. There's so many casualties in the politics, religion, and science world. And you can look at your Facebook. Everyone around you who's in a political science and religious dogma, they are deteriorating, and there are so many casualties. There's the died suddenly, there's the diagnosable conditions. There's so much stuff. There's so many casualties when it comes to resistance. So then you understand why it is I've been focusing on Alex Jones a lot and his mantra of "we are the resistance." And that right there speaks to we are going to be the casualties at some point, because resistance is futile. Okay, no one's doing anything to anyone. Really, when you think about it. Yeah, it kind of weird seeing the sun kind of shine weird through the haze of fertilization. Okay, adding extra nutrients to the environment. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say poison. I'm not going to say chemicals. I'm going to say nutrients, because that's exactly what they are. Nutrients. It's not poison. If it's poison, we'll all be dead. Because remember, even cockroaches, you can't kill a cockroach. They evolve so fucking quickly. They can withstand any type of onslaught as far as chemical warfare. I mean, obviously they can't survive a nuclear bomb if they use at ground zero, but that's why they're kind of impervious to all the different stuff. So you don't want to breed cockroaches and have it start, because once you see one, there is probably 1,000 more somewhere else. Okay? And so humans are kind of like cockroaches. We are, and it's not a bad thing. It's really a good thing. It means that we have so much adaptability. Obviously, humans have done stupid shit for thousands of years, and we haven't completely extincted ourselves. We're still here. I mean, different versions of ourselves, but we're still here. So that obviously speaks to the amount and the aggressive adaptability we have. Okay, as far as physiologically now, then the programming, the psychological programming is a whole different story. And that is that's the balance of nature, is that you don't want to now be the one to choose who lives and who dies. You don't want to give someone that kind of absolute power. That's what happened in World War II. Somebody had absolute power, and they deemed this person, or this culture unfit to be part of the human race. And that's not for anyone to decide who is fit and unfit to be part of our society. We give people the choice. We let them take themselves out by their own hands, so as long as it's not hurting somebody else. We give them the tools if they so choose. And if you're told one way, okay, and they make that one way relatively manageable and tolerable to live, like the last whatever how many years that we've been under this perception that we're supposed to die someday, and then the medical system, the holistic system made it humanitarian to pass away. Okay, but then when you get introduced to new information, then you're allowed to choose, and then you see the juxtaposition of what you have been doing, the traditions that have been embedded in your family for generations, and at the 11th hour you're given a choice. At the 11th fucking hour. That's what's so crazy. That's what's so crazy about what's going on, is at the 11th hour, you're being given a choice. All the programming that we've ever been under is starting to break down. Obviously, there's died suddenlies, or people are getting diagnosable conditions, and people are questioning everything about whatever's been going on in their whole life. you're seeing then my black hair is turning gray, and it's not because I'm getting old or dying. I mean, it's because the programming of the black hair is breaking down. Okay? And who knows what that's going to look like as far as people who are bald. Are they going to, when they finally add more weight to their body? Because it's, again, having the hair and having all the other things, it's the programming, yes. And you have to add a lot more weight to the body. And of course, there's that balance of how much energy conversion is going on your resting state, how much energy conversion going on out there, and then what your daily activities are. And they all have to be factored in. And then also your intake of food and fat, and not just only protein, because remember, protein will just build more muscle. It's the fat, the fat, the fat. A lot of fat. Like I was eating a steak yesterday along with my Chinese chicken salad. And I was just cutting off the fat off the steak. Okay? Cutting off the fat off the steak and eating more of the fat than I am the meat. And it was a nice round steak that had so much the marbleized fat inside and outside. And that's the fat that I go after. It's the tastiest and it's the most healthiest for this environment, because you need that layer of fat for not only the protection from so many different things, but also gives you substance for energy conversion when the environment changes and you don't feel it as much. That's the thing that I noticed, is I don't feel so much the crazy energy conversion that is going on. I mean, I feel the heartbeats, yes. I'm watching somebody walk down the street. Like, who are they? But because I have insulation. Okay, it's going to a car. Yeah, okay. And so I have the insulation. And I sleep like a fucking baby. I sleep like a baby. I will fall asleep, just like clockwork around between 8 and 10. Then I'll be up around 12, walking around. But even then, everything is just depends on what's going on. And so and then I wake up and I'm up at 5 and I'm ready to go, or 4 or 6, just depends upon how aggressive the energy is. And so anyways, what I'm trying to say here as I go off on these tangents is, why die fighting in the prison of a continuous fight? And so you were always free, but your thoughts were slavery and your belief system held you prisoner. You are conditioned like a flea in a lidless jar, jumping as high as your family will let you. Okay? And so, yeah, I mean, wow, I'm just trying to figure out, why was I talking about all that stuff the last, 5 minutes, 3 minutes? And so when you think about it, it ain't the government. It's your friends and family who hold you prisoner. When you think about it, it's your friends and family that hold you prisoner. That's why extricating yourself from so many influences around you that are keeping you under a type of, captivity, you will set yourself free. But see, people like their jail. They have Stockholm syndrome around their friends, their family, their associations, their politics, religion, science. And you can't free people that want to stay stuck. They'll still be unhappy. They'll still think that they're under slavery. And they are, but they're blaming the wrong thing. If they're so unhappy and they think they have to break free, they should look next to them and look at their husband, look at their wife, look at their children, look at their parents. Because that's who the overseers are. That's who the slave masters are. It's your wife, it's your husband. So if you're trying to break free and you're feeling like you're enslaved, you need to look in your house. You need to look at who you hang out with. And so if you think the government is trying to enslave you, that was a psychological operation that was given to you. Okay? And so, yeah, the people who are resisting the most, there's so many casualties in the resistance. And so, as far as, is hair originally white? So that's a great takeaway. That those who resist will have the most casualties. And that was built in. That was built in as a depopulation. That's why war is necessary for population control. Because what else you can do? Have people breeding children 24/7 all the time who don't really have a place in our society, who just consume. and there's no purpose, no place, no really anything. And so what do? They commit crimes, get lost in addictions, hurt people, do things, bully people, don't want to evolve. I mean, that's what we're dealing with right now, is that when you're in a utopian society where there's no predation, no disease, there's all out extinction, because then people get crazy and they're in a cured state and they're not evolving and they cannibalize each other. The environment is, one cannot evolve while one is resisting. Absolutely. And so that's what happened in Universe 25, is that it was a utopian environment. No predation, no disease, everything given to them. And then John B. Calhoun noticed all the different factions relative to the hormonal imbalances or hormones at the time. So as far as is hair originally white, I want to read this whole thing because y'all have to hear it. Not only do you have, because when you read it, it depends on how your perception around reading all that stuff, how you process it. So if you hear it and you also read it yourself at some point, then maybe other things will click. So you have to have all your five senses, at least your hearing and seeing. So parents often cite having teenagers as a cause of gray hair. This is a good hypothesis, but scientists continue to investigate why hair turns gray. Like you're saying, stress. Like I saw Obama come into office with black hair and he left office with gray hair. Okay. So in a lot of ways, I could see where they made that correlation equals causation, because the stress breaks the programming down and the hair, the white hair, comes in the original programming. So in time, everyone's hair turns gray. Your chance of going gray increases 10 to 20% every decade after 30 years. Okay. So initially hair is white. It gets its natural color from a type of pigment called melanin. The formation of melanin begins before birth. The natural color of our hair depends upon the distribution type and amount of melanin or genes in the middle layer of the hair shaft or cortex. Hair has only two types of pigments, dark eumelanin and light pheomelanin. I don't even know how to pronounce it, so I'll just murder it, but that's okay. They blend together to make up the wide range of hair colors. Okay, those are genes again. Melanin is made up of a specialized pigment cells called melanocytes. They position themselves at the openings on the skin surface through which hair grows, follicles. Each hair grows from a single follicle. Right? So, the process of hair growth has three phases, and this is for John and everyone else who's bald, okay? Anagen. This is the activity growth stage of the hair fiber and can last from 2 to 7 years. At any given moment, 80 to 85% of our hair is in the anagen process. Catagen, sometimes referred to as the transitional phase, which is when hair growth begins to shut down and stop activity. It generally lasts 10 to 20 days. Okay, telogen. This occurs when hair growth is completely at rest and the hair fiber falls out. At any given time, 10 to 15% of our hair is in the telogen phase, which generally lasts 100 days for scalp hair. After the telogen phase, the hair growth process starts over again at the anagen phase. So that's why you get new hair growth. All right, and so every single hair on your head and the growth is going through different phases. Just like people out there in the population, they're all in different phases of dying and reproducing and going through their different phases of life based upon the programming of our society. And so your hair is always going through. So if you don't have any hair, that's when you have a lot of activity, a lot of radiation in your body, right? Because that's what happens when you get radiation, is your hair falls out. And so those that have a high amount of, when you think about it, now I'm applying logic from what I'm seeing when there's like radioactivity in the environment and there was like a radio bomb or something, or what do you call it, a hydrogen bomb or some kind of atomic bomb, then if people's hair falls out and things like that. When someone goes through radiation, chemotherapy or radiation, the hair falls out. That's why they wear wigs when they're going through that kind of cancer or oncology. And so, I think when people start going bald, there's a lot of energy conversion. And then I think the hair does get sacrificed during that time. It's like an internal radiation type of thing. Okay, because you're supposed to go through different. Now, well, I'll tell you why. I'll give you my reason why as we go through. Okay, so with age or the breaking down, because remember we don't want to assume because you go gray that confluence of junctioning together the breaking down of the program of the pigmentation and then the person deteriorating because of lifestyle belief systems and the medical holistic industry. I don't want you to make the correlation equals causation. But remember, this is written by scientists in the medical industry. All right. So with age comes a reduction of melanin. The hair turns gray and eventually white. So they're implying that the deterioration process has, as far as the body, because of lack of food and aggressive use of antibiotics, is tied to then why the hair turns gray, and not necessarily so. Correlation does not always equal causation, and just because something happens like this doesn't mean it's this. And that's a major thing you have to make sure that you don't make things mean something because someone in the medical system told you so, or because your mom and dad told you something. It doesn't mean it's the only truth. So that's why, John, I think that's why you're bald. Because not only are you fucking smart, you're type B, I think, and you have a lot of neural brain activity. And when you have a lot of high neural activity, then it's like releasing the demons, yes, and also adding the weight, adding the weight, adding the weight, adding the weight. And that takes time, especially when you've been in a program for such a long time and the environment is highly, highly conductive. And so you and most people like you have to really bring on the fat and bring on the weight, not so much muscle weight, but a lot of the fat weight, and release the demons. And it's a process. It's a process. But I'm hypothesizing that if you do bring on the weight, the fat, and all that stuff, that you will have tufts of hair growing. But again, that's something that you're going to have to figure out. I can't promise you that's going to happen because, again, that's so many factors involved with you, with that happening. And so we're in a highly dynamic environment, so there's a lot of balancing acts. So why does our hair turn gray or white? Dr. Desmond Tobin, a professor of cell biology from the University of Bradford in England, oh, lovely England, suggests that the hair follicle has a melanogenetic clock, okay, time, right, which slows down or stops melanocytes activity, thus decreasing the pigment our hair receives. This occurs just before the hair is preparing to fall out or shed, so the root always looks pale. Moreover, okay, so they're saying that there's a specific amount of time. There's a programming that breaks down at a certain time. And of course, so many factors, the hormones, the environment, all the stuff will factor in how soon or how later it happens. And so moreover, Dr. Tobin suggests that hair turns gray because of age, genetics, in the genes, in that genes regulate the exhaustion of the pigments potentially of each individual hair follicle. This occurs at different rates in different hair follicles. For some people, it occurs rapidly, while in others, it occurs slowly over several decades. And again, somebody in the J world who says that she is obese, she's mentioned it, she's obese, her hair did turn, I guess, maybe gray at one point, and then it stayed its color, or it hasn't, turned any gray, it's still very dark. And I'm thinking, yeah, because the obesity, right, the extra weight on the body kept that programming in. And so that's why her hair hasn't turned gray at all. It's still stayed, it's still staying its color that it was, the original programming. Okay, so I think weight, definitely when you're coming from a higher substance with a lot more programming in your body, that is why the programming is staying more intact as far as the pigmentation. And then when people lose weight, they lose that pigmentation programming, yes. And also maybe the lustrous or the thickness of the hair potentially could lose, its lustrousness. And as you lose the weight, and then when you gain, so then when you're playing with that programming of releasing the demons and taking on the new programming, which is what I am, and I'm robust. I'm telling you, I'm very different in all different places, but my hair is going gray, and it's good. It's original programming. My face is still plump, and I don't have anything. I don't have the aging process in my face. And so I'm thinking that yes, the hair will go gray, the original color, but my weight will be relative to the conditions and what I'm feeding and what I'm eating. And so then you'll see a really different original human outcome. Okay, now as far as what thickness level to my hair down the road, when that programming wears off, my hair turns totally white, I don't know. Then I'm looking at Terrence Ashley. He's using my chemtrails group, and him and I were admins at one point with that chemtrails group. And he has long, he's, I think, Native American, and he has long, long white hair, but he's also really skinny too. Um, and so that's pretty interesting to see. And some of you have need to gain the weight and need to bring back the fat in the face and all that stuff, but your hair is gray, and so you're seeing your original programming. Not like you're old, because you're not old, because you can bring on the substance, okay, to fill in all the cracks and the crannies. Okay, so anyways, in February of 2005, Science articles, Nishimura et al., Harvard scientists proposed that a failure of melanocyte stem cells, MSC, to maintain the production of melanocytes could cause the graying of the hair. Okay, the failure of MSC maintenance may result in the breakdown of signals that produce hair color. So it's, I mean, they say failure as if there was something wrong. Nothing wrong. It's just that you have specific programming. It's like I'm thinking like, okay, so my hair is going gray, but I feel amazing. I don't feel as many of these crazy energy conversions. I'm pooping. My boobs are rounder. My everything is like proportional. I don't feel like I have anything more in one area. I mean, it's carrying weight in the middle, but not so much. Is definitely something to get used to. But it's not like disproportionately. It's proportional relative to the intelligence that I have to maintain in a highly dynamic environment. And so it's such a different feeling being in a different kind of body than what I'm used to. It's a trip. It's something to get used to. But so when people are used to having a six pack and having a flat belly, telling them that now you got to carry more intelligence in your belly, and they're used to their 32-inch waist if they're a dude, or a 28-inch waist if they're a chick, to say, okay, now you got to be 30-something, inch waist as a chick or whatever, and weighing more than 118 pounds. And these chicks are like, fuck no, I'm not going to look sexy. I'm not going to. And that's the programming that people are resisting, that are in the image industry. Okay. And they're selling real estate. They're selling dreams. They're selling concoctions. They're selling everything under the sun because they were told that they have to look a certain way in order to sell this health and wellness regime, whether it's yoga, massage therapy, exercise, or whatever the hell. They have to look a certain way, and that would require losing the belly intelligence, being extremely muscular and extremely skinny, and looking like you're ready to drop and have sex right there at that moment. And that's a programming that will be self-destruct. Mark my words, especially in this environment. Okay, and so there are other factors that can change the pigmentation, okay, of hair, making it lighter or darker. Scientists have divided them by intrinsic, internal, and extrinsic external factors. Intrinsic, or inside. Okay, genetic defects. Okay, defects are based upon what the intention of the programming is. Hormones, body distribution, and age. Okay, and that's all programming. Extrinsic, intrinsic factors, outside factors, climate, pollutants, toxins, chemical exposure, okay? They make everything sound like, oh God, but not really. Because in this environment, remember when the climate changed so aggressively and all of our hair was falling out? Remember that, guys? We were pulling out clumps and clumps of our hair around the beginning of COVID because of frequencies. The radiation was so much. That's what was going on. There was an oncological influence that was going on, that our hair was falling out. Mine was too. It was getting thinner. That's why I had to go get a haircut so I can kind of even, it looked all stringy and witchy. So I had somebody go and cut my hair so it can cut off all the crappy ends and it can grow out and have it be proportional, look relatively healthy based upon the environment. And so, yeah, the climate change is going to definitely influence your hair and break down the programming even faster. So that's why you're seeing people deteriorate even more so, because the programming is breaking down, but they're not feeding the programming. They're resisting the climate change. Because guess what's going on? The activist community is in resistance. They're not evolving. Absolutely not. They can't evolve. It's too much. It's too hard for them. They are locked into their resistance, and that's where the casualties are going to come from, is the resistance. Okay, now why do I say that maybe humans are supposed to have hair? Well, because again, it's in our programming to have, how much hair, I couldn't tell you. But to have some kind of hair, yeah. I mean, I thought I read somewhere where there was a certain amount. Let me see. Okay. Okay, so this occurs at different rates. So I think it was the telegenic. Yeah, it was the rate. It was those three things: the anagen, catagen, and telogen. And so the process of hair growth has three phases. So yeah, so the anagen, this is the active growth stage of the hair fiber and can last from 2 to 7 years. Okay, so there's different rates of the hair. There's 3 different phases of each hair follicle. And so in a more highly accelerated environment such as this, a highly radioactive environment, if you already have radioactivity in your brain because of high kinetic energy, so much energy conversion because of blood types. Okay, and you can look at blood types as having a lot of antigen antibody programming. Remember I said that there's a lot of conflict and a lot of energy conversion. And that's where over time you got to release the demons and bring on the programming, which is the fat. And release the demons and bring on the fat, and have intelligence in the middle. Your gut is your first brain when you think about it. But if you let this go because of Alzheimer's or dementia or neurological diseases, then obviously it's down here is already being starved out. You've already been compromised. When you lose it up here, you pretty much lost it down there. And when you lose it up here, you won't get it back down here, because then you will have to be given to the medical system. You will have to be given to the medical system. And so that's what people are facing. I read somewhere that somebody was saying that in the Died Suddenly groups, that their friend who's 50-something years old has already been diagnosed with dementia. And she is deteriorating very fast in this environment. I'm not surprised. I can only imagine how much she has resisted within the last 3 years of the pandemic, of the COVID, the frequency change that caused that deterioration to happen that quickly. Resistance is futile, and that is so appropriate in so many ways. And so, so the confluence of the deterioration process and the melanin reduction of the programming, breaking it down, made people think going gray means you are deteriorating, when it doesn't have to be that way. So John, thank you for that word. That's why I mentioned John and Audrey in my book, because they both, at the times that I was going through intellectual evolution, they both gave me some key fucking shit that really jumped me to the next level. And so I remember the things that you guys have offered to me. I remember every single one of them. And confluence is one word I remember that John and I were talking about a couple years ago. And so the confluence, a coming together to one place, a flowing together or place of meeting, especially, okay? And so when the breaking down of the melanin, because that's a programming, happens alongside of the person's deterioration process because their practices of resisting evolution, when they finally merge together, and then you see someone who has deterioration from their practices in the medical holistic system and resisting evolution, they make that deterioration process correlate to the losing of the melanin in the hair. And that's where you get this belief system that growing old also has to do with graying hair. When in actuality, some people grow old and they still have a head of hair and it's all lustrous. They die with the black hair or the brown hair or the blonde hair. Okay, so not everyone dies with gray hair. I have to figure out who out there in Hollywood has passed away with a full head of hair, but then you don't know, people color their hair all the time. So again, you'll never know when people are doing things to make it look like they are healthy and part of the programming, when in actuality they're resisting the programming. And that's all the psychological operations, that's everything. Okay? And so my original hair color is coming back, white, gray, or silver, and it's silver. I mean, look. This is what I want you guys to see. Look at this, see? It's a trip. I want to bring it as close as possible you guys can see. See, I don't have any dandruff. I used to have dandruff when I was a kid, but not anymore. But you see all that. It's like freaking crazy. I was like, Jason, oh my God, this is fucking insane. He's like, yeah, you're an old woman. He's like, shut up. You know, that's my husband. He's so funny. He's a little smart ass. But I love him to death, but not really. I don't want to die. I don't want to die, but I think he's great. And so the thing about melanin protects hair from the sun. I don't know if that's really true, but hey, whatever. But maybe it is. Okay, maybe it is. Fuck. The latter is conditioned by the type of melanin and its concentration. For example, dark hair is more resistant to UV rays and decay than light hair because of high photostability of eumelanin compared to pheomelanin. Oh, God. Okay. So losing melanic minerals means you don't need as much protection relative to the lifestyle you're in. So yeah, I guess if I was outside, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. If I was outside, would I, at this point, it's not going to matter because when that programming breaks down and you're in that, I don't know. See, that's what's so weird. It's like, it must be a temporary programming. The hair color must be a temporary programming. That's the only way I could draw some kind of conclusion around this. Because my body is great. I feel great. More intelligence, obviously. And my hair is going gray. And so I think the color of the hair is a temporary thing. Hair in of itself needs to happen on some level. But as far as the color of it, that's a programming. And so when you're reversing age, the aging process with gray or white hair, it means you don't need protection from the sun unless you were out there all the time, which is, again, I couldn't make that. So that's my own, but we'll see. Again, we'll see. I don't go out there a lot because there's so much craziness out there and it's hot. And so even the hair color has been bioengineered into us and cured and reproduced with the offspring. Because remember, that's what when you have offspring, they have the same kind of phenotypical characteristics on some level, unless there's some rogue program that comes in and causes maybe a little bit of anomaly or variation. Okay? And so white or gray hair doesn't always mean what you think it means. Another programming tied to degradation. And then, okay. And so why do people go gray in their later years? Because the programming wore off. They say don't pull out your gray hairs because more will grow. Well, obviously when you pull out weeds, they'll grow more, right? When you pull anything out of the ground that has other life, it's going to grow back. Okay? And so, yeah, they say don't pull out gray hairs because more will grow. Yeah, that was your original hair color. What age do you gray by ethnicity? This is what I asked my Google. The researchers found that when your hair starts to gray varies by race. Interesting, right? Race is really the phenotypical characteristics programmed into a population. And yes, geography will influence the phenotypical characteristics because the environment will cause melanin and things to happen for protection. And then people reproduce on that, so then you get the same variation. And then when someone moves to, let's say someone from the sub-Saharan desert in Africa going to Norway, it'll be difficult and to evolve and you'll be sick. Just like when I went to California to Ohio, I was sick because I went from one environment to another and I had to acclimate to the environment. And so, yeah, anyone that goes from somewhere hot to somewhere cold has to not only bring on the fat, but go through the evolution process. And so, yeah, so then when you go from like Africa and over time, your family settles into America, like back in, 1800s, right? Because of the slavery stuff that came from Africa and then there's generations of slaves that then turned to free people here right now. And so then they acclimated and they still produce children that are the original ethnicity, the original melanin from Africa. But when you're in some place like Ohio, it's now it's like you have different races because they keep reproducing. No one's evolving. And so if you actually had a person evolve from Africa to something like a colder climate, they bring on the weight, their skin would probably get lighter and the melanin won't be as much because the melanin is blocking the UV rays. You need UV rays to survive. And there's probably less UV rays in the northern climates than there are in the southern by the equator. And so then you would see like the tinting of the glasses, the transition lenses, where when you're inside, it's not so dark on the glasses, and when you're outside, the glasses get darker to protect you from the sun. That's what I see could happen with evolution if people can withstand the changes of evolution, not resist it. Okay? And so, yeah, so that's what I'm thinking too, somewhere. So anyways, so what age do you go gray by ethnicity? The researchers found that when hair starts to gray varies by race. The average ages are mid-30s for whites, late 30s for Asian people, and mid-40s for black. Interesting why the black population goes gray later. Maybe that programming, that highly melanic programming is so intense that also it made them so strong that the breaking down of that pigmentation programming is happening later because of how strong that programming is. And then why with the white race, it's the average age of the mid-30s for whites. And then for Asians, since we have different, it's like you could see then the transition from the white to the Asian to the black, and then you have all the different races in between, or phenotypical characteristics based upon cultural region and geography and all that stuff. And so then you see how strong, then why then also people of African American heritage are really strong in the Olympics, strong in the sports. And then you see now the breakdown. It's pretty interesting. It's really freaking interesting of how each culture was bred for very specific things. Okay? And so were we all originally gray hair, white skin? Well, I wouldn't necessarily say that. Yeah, well, I'm trying to think. There was albinos. There's a few albinos in Africa. They had the white hair and the white skin. I don't know. That's something that'll be interesting to see. That's what I'm saying. It's so interesting now because we're just now discovering how programmed we are. And when was it all happening? 6,000 years ago, I guess, or even more so as biotech became more advanced. We'll see. But that's interesting. That little bit of knowledge I missed yesterday when I was talking about this is that, yeah, the white people go gray earlier than the black people. And that's really interesting. And so don't dye your hair in the J world. Let your original form come to surface. Okay? Okay, so here's a hard one. This is a hard concept here about misery loves company. Because I read Stephen King novels as a kid, and I couldn't get into it because they're so wordy. Yes, very prolific, very wordy, and really scary. But I did read some of the Stephen King, like thinner, but the longer versions is longer. I probably could read his stuff now, but now I just read information stuff. But I want to read this, and then you'll see where our misery came into this, because amputation. Remember when people are saying, I was saying you can regrow your limbs and organs even if you're born without them. People are like, yeah, Jillian, cut off your arm so you can regrow it and all that shit. And I'm like, oh my God, prove it, Jillian, prove it. And I'm going to say, I'll tell you, when it comes to regrowing limbs, like organs are not that difficult. You just got to deal with the pain in the areas that you had to get that, you went to get surgery or get oncology or whatever. You got to deal with the pain of regrowth and also pulling out the damaged programming. And sometimes that damaged programming wants to stay in your body and you have to literally push it out. And so when it comes to amputation, like actual amputation and losing arms and limbs and all that stuff, to regrow it, it would be painful because you would have to then pull out all of the damaged cells all the time. And then you would have to feed your body milk, meat, cheese, eggs, everything under the sun, because your body needs the food to then repair the damaged cells. That's the thing about amputation. Okay, amputation is hard to come back from because it requires replacing damaged cells with whole cells. And yes, all food is necessary and effective release of the damaged cells is required. And so that's also why when people get cancer, it's because they have so much damaged cells inside of them that they did not want to release. And so that damage inside their body signaled the body to produce stem cells called cancer cells. That's why they called them immortal cells. Henrietta Lacks immortal cells. Okay, she was the one that was forced to, well, not forced, but science took her cervical or something cancer cells and did tests and realized that they were immortal. But all cancer cells are immortal cells. Those are your, what is it called? Germ cells. Okay? Germ cells are immortal. They all are. And everyone has them. Some people resist them and they attack them with oncology. But germ cells are immortal. Okay? So when you have so much damage in your body, that's why cancer happens. That's why deterioration happens. That's why the senescence happens, because you hold the damage inside. When you release that damage and you rebuild your body, that's when you can reverse the aging process, the gene deterioration process. So amputation is hard to come back from because it will require replacing damaged cells with whole cells. And yes, all food is necessary. And an effective release of the damaged cells is required. It is painful to release and replace, but not entirely impossible. Not only does one need a strong support system at home, but also a support system in the body to manage that rebuild process. And so then what happens then when people love each other so much, they love their friends, they love their family, they love their kids, they love their dog, they love their cat. Then I was thinking like, oh shit. The people that love us the most are the ones that destroy us the most. How does that happen, Jillian? Because remember, everything's about dying and reproducing, right? Love is about dying and reproducing. And people intentionally try to like throw their love on me on Facebook, and I see it. I know it's intentional. But then I will convert that and say, okay, that's called evolution. They may believe in death at some point, and they have their whole thing about it, but I'm going to convert it to like, I get they're coming from a place of good, because they're not nefariously trying to destroy me, but also it's the evolution. Because love and sex is about evolution. Doesn't mean that you have to die, because you can come back from that if you're not too far gone. Okay, but when people really love their friends and their family and they're taking them to oncology, they're taking them to all the different methodologies to stop the pain, to stop all this stuff, that's when I'm like, okay. Stephen King has shown us the extreme side of how damaging humans are when they are in a deterioration process. And so Kathy Bates in that movie, the #1 fan to that author that was in that storyline, she loved and respected that author to such an extent that it became damaging. It became deadly, damaging, and she was holding him captive. Like literally held him captive through her love and her adoration. To the point where she forced him to write the rest of the novel after she cut off his legs. Okay, because he wasn't, you can see the trailer. I watched it a long time ago. And so when you think about it, when you think about grandmas that love their grandkids so much and love their kids so much, mommies love their daughters and sons so much, fathers, same thing, friends that love their best friends. When you have best friends that are telling you, you got to do this, 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 and this, and you rely on them all the time. Many people have the Lady of Misery, Kathy Bates, actively taking care of their friends and family who love, love, love their kids' family, kids/family, so much to the point of destruction. When you love someone so much, you take them to the hospital so they can get something taken out of them. When you love somebody so much, you're giving them radiation on the life in their body. When you love somebody so much, you're taking them to get a surgery to get trauma done to them. You love somebody so much, you're giving them such an aggressive concoction against the life in the body, against the body's release process. You love somebody so much, you put the fear of food into them. You starve them. That's how crazy the love, and it's all like hormones. It's not like you're taking an axe to somebody's legs, but microbially you're doing that. And so what Stephen King was showing, what people do at the micro level versus the macro level. Yeah, you can't take an axe to someone's legs in our society, but you can give them a homeopathic remedy as long as it's FDA approved. That's like taking an axe to someone's legs. That's like disabling someone's immune system. When you're giving them a homeopathic, allopathic surgery, holy shit. When you understand the micro and the macro are basically two sides of the same coin. But taking an axe to someone's legs is like an immediate correlation equals causation. When you're giving someone a home remedy that's FDA approved, it's the progression, it's the cumulative effect on that person's immune system, on their growth process. That's why the medical holistic system is an insidious type of system to belong to. And then, of course, it's reinforced by politics, religion, and science. And then, of course, your friends and family are keeping you jailed if you allow them to influence you in stopping your evolution. And so, I'll tell you, when you understand the micro and the macro and you look at the movies, they're telling you so much stuff. Which is why more kids are born deficient, relying on artificial intelligence and transplants, the harder it will become whole again. Adults, if you're not too far gone, you have the possibility to redirect if you set up your life properly. Your kids may not be so lucky because they have a lot more to overcome. They haven't even hit puberty yet, and some have, and it's just already gone. The train is off the station. They're too hot. They're not going to want to get a middle and look fat in a bathing suit. Some of you have bred really beautiful girls. They're too far gone because they will not at all gain the intelligence in their belly. They will want to be skinny and then do the boob jobs and do all that stuff. Be the 36D because that's what sells right now. That's what makes people money, and that's what gives them the success, and that will be short-lived. And so I can assure you, those who are brainwashing their friends and family into thinking the food is tainted with poisons are actively, psychologically programming their audience to starve. I'm watching it right now. I can only sit back and laugh to myself because there is nothing I can do except observe. When friends and family are symbolically disabling their friends and family from evolving, it's like the character in Misery breaking the legs of her favorite author. She was taken care of so he would not leave her. Very poetic, very appropriate. So when you have mothers who are actively making sure their daughters do not evolve, and they keep reinforcing the sex programming, all that different programming, and reinforcing so many things because a mom is so fucking lonely that she has to have her daughter or her son stay around her all the time, she will break the legs of her kids, break the evolution of her kids, of her sons or daughters, so that way she is never alone. And in turn, they both destroy each other. That's how so on point Misery is about families and friends, is they purposely break each other's legs so they can stay together. It's fucking insane to watch. Oh, I'm telling you, it's fucking insane to watch. And they justify it. Oh, I love my grandkids. Oh, I love my child. I love my daughter. I love my son. I worship the fucking ground they walk on. And yeah, you do. You get to the point of breaking their legs so they never leave you. That's motherhood nowadays. That's grandmotherhood, motherhood, fatherhood. That's everything right now in our society. So if you walked away from your parents at some point, you were probably set free. And that was probably your saving grace if you can survive being on your own. So when you demonize FDA-approved foods and therapies, you are like Miss Kathy Bates, purposely disabling your friends and family from growing and evolving. It's extraordinary to watch. Oh, I'm telling you, watching mothers break the legs of their kids at a micro level, it's fucking insane to watch. But it's like, holy shit. That's when you finally see things for what they really are. And of course, you painted yourself in a corner, right? You can only act out that character in Misery. But it's all through love. Here, I love you, honey. I'm taking you on college. Oh, I love you, honey. I'm taking you. I'm going to make sure that you never get this information or understand it because I'm never going to evolve, daughter. So I'm going to make sure that you don't evolve. And I will actively, symbolically break your legs so you never fucking leave me. That's why it's interesting to watch people and watch how they interact with their families. It's fucking in your face. And you can't do anything about it, but you can only observe it and point it out. And so Misery, the character Misery, likes the company. And remember, your number one fan could be disabling your ability to evolve. How many of you are somebody's number one fan? Oh, I love my husband a lot. I won't say to death. I may say it sometimes, but like, oh, geez, I don't want to. But I only spend what I absolutely need to spend to make sure that I evolve myself and that he gets fed. But he doesn't have to work as many hours as he's working. The reason why he's working so many hours is because he has hobbies and things to do. I don't want to enslave my husband. I really don't. I can live on almost nothing. He's the one that has all the things. He wants to move up in this world and, economically, use the credit cards for things so he can pay for shit. He wants all the things. He wants to keep up with the Joneses. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I want to tell you, I'm going to tell you, I'm not trying to enslave my husband. I don't want to break his legs so he can stay around. If he wants to go, he's free to go. I'm not trying to keep him around, but I'm offering something to him, and he's offering something to me that we both can work together. I have certain strengths that he has that he doesn't have, and vice versa. We're a team effort. But again, I want to make sure you know I don't at all want to enslave my husband, and I will never recommend him to go to the hospital for anything unless he absolutely has to. And he said if he has a heart attack or a stroke, that if he doesn't, that I will. But I will not, when he's feeling bad and he's conscious and has clear mental clarity to say that I'm feeling bad, I'm not going to recommend him to go to the hospital or a doctor or give him anything. I will let him make that decision, but I will not recommend anything. But if he's unconscious, then I will call 911 and I will call the ambulance or whatever. But if he's conscious, then I'm like him make the choice. And if someone around him is recommending him shit, I can't control his world. But I will never break the legs of my fucking husband micro levelly. I will never, ever. And so that's why I want no one worshiping me. I don't want any number one fans. Look what happened to Selena, the Hispanic singer of the 90s. Her number one fan destroyed her. Which is why politics, religion, science, dogmas can be very dangerous, because they radicalize people into loving things so much they destroy them, which is probably the intention. Or hating things so much they destroy things, which is why you are in a surveillance society, because you have been radicalized in your politics, in your religion, in your science, and you hate and love things so much because you want to save them. No different than people that hate me. They're trying to save me from all their friends and family, right? Not save me, or save them from me. Well, you know what I mean. Okay? But people that don't like me are coming from a good place too. They just don't understand where the hell I'm coming from. And they're coming from a savior point of view. They have to save the world. And they haven't even saved themselves. But nothing is poison here. I'm not giving any medical advice. And I'm off the J world. Off the J juice. I'm just eating food, eating milk, and releasing the demons. And telling you, holy shit, your love of all your friends and family are destroying them. All right. Oh, it's extraordinary to fucking watch. It is so extraordinary to watch. So Selena Quintanilla Perez was shot and killed by her fan club president, Yolanda Saldivar, at the Days Inn Hotel in Corpus Christi in 1995. The Grammy Award-winning singer was just 23 years old. Which is why I want no kids or a dog or a pet right now until the world changes. And it won't change for a long ass time. Because you'll be forced to destroy them. Because you are their number one fan and you don't want them to suffer. And your friends and family and your society will force you to force that kid to get treated for whatever evolution they're going through. Unless you're willing to figure out how to do it without triggering your friends and family to come down on you and force you to destroy your child or your pet. That's what I'm saying. People are held prisoner by the community they live in, by their mom, their dad, their sister, their brother, their wife, their husband, their neighbors. And that's why they say, when you see something, say something, right? You hear that? Call the police. And yeah, absolutely. People can't even discern what is good or bad anymore, so they have to call the police on almost everything because they don't know anymore what's good or bad. And that's all relative. And so, politics, religion, and science dogmas promote fan-based worshiping and savior behaviors. That's why I have an issue with all types of worshiping people, places, and things. It becomes destructive. People worshiping their children, they become destructive to their children. And anything they worship and target, they destroy out of good intentions. Because even those that hate me have good intentions saving their friends from me. Okay? All comes from worship and savior. Built-in misery, because the breakdown process is fucking miserable. And you can't force anyone to rebuild themselves. It only takes once for me to learn. I remember I never had my own dog. But now I will not get another dog again until society changes. Because I will not go through that process again. I won't get a cat. There's feral cats outside I look at, and sometimes they lay on my deck. when it's nice outside and no one's around. But now I'm not taking on anything dependent on me to keep it alive. Because again, you can't force anything to rebuild itself. We're not built for that kind of suffering, and the environment's too unstable. It's too unstable to have anything where you can help it get through the energy of conversion and evolution, and it still won't suffer as much because the energy in the environment is not as aggressive. But in this environment, fuck no, I will not have an animal. I will not. So again, people mean well, and they're not bad or wrong. They're just doing their programming. The kicker is nobody intends to harm anyone, but their needing validation and needing company has caused them to be the number one destroyer to the things they love the most. Your love has been weaponized. That's the awakening of humanity, when you think about it. Change might be possible for some, but at least awareness is key. And if you have the possibility to change, maybe entertain the notion. Some of you don't have the possibility to change. And so since you don't have the possibility to change, you will destroy everything around you because you can. And it's accepted. And yeah, it's legal. Remember, it's indirect euthanasia. When you're nudging your friends to go to the hospital system, to go do this, to not change, to not get a new information, when you're still in your activist stuff, when you're nudging them around you to stay cured and stay stuck and stay unchanging, that's the indirect euthanasia that is accepted. And no one's going to say anything unless you do something that equals correlation equals causation. That's why I can only watch people do shit and just laugh, because I know what's going on. And I can't do anything about it. I can only just observe it and point it out. And just laugh, but not really, because it's very sad. But that's what's going on. And so those that are really radicalized in their religions obviously have issues with boundaries. And so I say, if I block you on Messenger, it's no offense to you. I still like you as a person. But when you're coming through my Messenger, sometimes people put stuff on my wall, and I'm like, okay. But you gotta stop preaching to me through your scripture. Like literally, you gotta stop sending me YouTube videos about Jesus. Okay? Like literally just stop it. Just stop it. And I've said this many times, but again, people that are radicalized, they don't have boundaries. And that right there is case in point why I don't want to deal with the religious community on so many levels, because of lack of boundaries. It's crazy. But that's right there a case in point about radicalization of people. And I know you're laughing, John, because you understand where I'm coming from. And so I block you on Messenger. It's no offense on you. I am just establishing boundaries. I avoid being preached through private Messenger. So please keep your belief systems and religion on your wall, and I appreciate it. And that's what I mean by radicalization. It's intense programming. I'm telling you, those that are in those very aggressive religious groups, whatever they are, it's intense programming. It is such intense programming that people can't get out of it. They are literally locked into that programming, like locked into it. And they will die with that programming. And it is all accepted in their community. It's pretty insane. That's why I'm like, holy crap. When you see things for what they really are, in politics, in religion, and in science dogmas, when you're locked into a programming, like the Clockwork Orange, when that kid in Clockwork Orange went through so much intense government programming, where he has absolutely no control over his hormones, no control over his reactions to things and the triggers, that's fucking scary as hell. That's scary as fucking hell. And that's so sad when you're locked into that kind of programming. It's wow. That's trauma-based programming. It's politics, it's religion, and it's scientific dogmas. That's the MK Ultra. That's America and the first world. That's what I mean by radicalization. It's pretty intense programming. And boundaries don't mean a lot to radicals. Absolutely not. Again, it's really intense. That's why I'm saying most people will not understand where I'm coming from, because I can never penetrate the intense programming they received as a child. As a fucking child. Okay? When your mom has been pounding the word of God into you ever since you're a kid, when your dad has beat the word of God into you, and you have so much trauma, looking for love, looking for acceptance, looking for validation, there's no fucking way I can penetrate that. So Leave it in your world. Our worlds are not crossed. Because I'm not converting to Jesus Christ. I'm sorry. I'll be quiet. I'm not converting to Hebrew. I was raised Jewish, yes. I was converted. I have a Jewish name, Layla. But do I go to Friday night services? No. Do I observe high holidays and all the different... No, I like the food. But I don't go and actively preach anything to anyone. I keep all that to myself. And I worship myself. And I evolve. Like I said, some people are too far gone. What their community, what their parents did to them was holy shit. Evolution is off the table for many people. So again, I can only sit back and just observe and point it out to you guys. And you guys can either see it or not see it. But it's extraordinary. Once you finally release the demons, and then you see even how you've acted and reacted, and you're willing to re-examine your reactions to things, and re-examine your politics, religion, your science dogmas. Wow. That is an awakening above every single awakening. That is that's freedom. That is finally setting yourself free. And so my mom did me a great service. Now that I look back on it, now that I look at what I could have had, a loving, destructive mother who loved me to death. That's why I'm not mad at my mother anymore. I mean, we're not going to have a relationship. I don't even know if she's still alive or not. I have no idea anything. But your programming worked. And so this is my open letter to the CIA, to all those projects that happened in the 80s, to all the different universities that were doing that kind of stuff under black budgets. This programming worked because I'm transparent. I'm not worshiping anything. I'm not radicalized. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I pay my taxes. I take care of what needs to be done. I take on new information. I evolve. I can learn concepts if given the chance. And I am not trying to resist anything. I'm evolving, adapting. I'm not anti-government. I understand what's going on. I'm not a resistor. Good fucking job. Good job. Somebody in the population was going to finally take to the programming and understand without trying to destroy people around them. They understand about giving people choices. You don't force conversion on people. And it is a choice once you're aware of the choices you have. And so they did it. Somebody did it right. Was it the intention of my mom? I don't know what was her intention. There were so many intentions back in the 80s, but things evolved. Things changed. It was just a fluke that I happened to find my husband. Or maybe it was, I don't even know. I ended up in Ohio, and here we are. Here I am. But I'm nothing like Ted Kaczynski or even Charles Manson. All of that negative energy that could have turned into that if it was that resentful and that hateful, left. And here I am. I am an evolving person adapting with no violent tendencies in me at all. At all. No bully, no nothing. You have the choice to do whatever the fuck you want. I ain't gonna force conversion on anybody. You choose. And if you can't choose, go see a doctor. Bye.